Hi guys, it's Kamil here, and I'm coming to you with the top 10 best novels I've read in 2018. Typical disclaimer, those are the novels read by me in 2018, not the ones published in 2018. But actually, as it happened, 7 of those books were actually published in 2018. That was just not the objective of this video. Before we start talking about the fiction list though, thank you for all the comments and views on my last video, Top 10 Nonfiction Reads of 2018. The first out of 2 videos ranking the best books of 2018 that I will link somewhere here. Today, we'll dive into fiction that still constitutes the majority of what I'm reading. To be fair, I decided not to include my favorite books I reread this year, so Snow by Orhan Pamuk, Crime and Punishment by Dostoyevsky, The Fifth Child by Doris Lessing or Disgrace by James Coetzee would be on this list, but since they were not read for the first time this year, they are not. Murakami and Ken Kesey, that I also reread this year, would not be on this list, just to be clear. There is nothing more corny than someone making oneself laugh, right? I do it all the time, so yeah, please bear with it. Quite a few times on this channel, during some discussions, I was saying that with fiction, the impression is generally, and at least in my case, a bit less lasting than with non-fiction. That serves me information, facts, that are more easily or more eagerly stored by my brain. While fiction is a form of art that needs to reinvent itself or be just classically stunning to make lasting impression in this vast sea of novels that we have nowadays. Those books that I'll talk about today did exactly that. Let the countdown begin. Number 10. The Warlight by Michael Ondaatje. This is my first book by Ondaatje. I know. But it proves that doesn't matter how much you read, there are always some big names to catch up with. Ondaatje is one of those big names for me. In his last novel, with an exquisite writing style, really exquisite writing style, Ondaatje tells a story of Second World War British spies through the eyes of a son of one of them. Siblings whose parents ventured off to undefined professional calls at the end of the Second World War are left in the hands of a grim guardian who introduces them to various offbeat characters somehow connected to their parents. And through them, and later on while working himself in the British intelligence, Nathaniel, the son, tries to piece together the life of his mother, greatly important British spy. The main theme of the book is the memory. When thinking about it, actually, it's quite visible theme in several books I'll talk about today. Anyways, we, the reader, alongside Nathaniel, while reading this book, obviously, are trying to piece together the life of his mother. From the pieces of photographs, heard stories, blurred childhood memories, appearing and disappearing traces in the wartime documents. Through all of that, Nathaniel builds what might have been his mother's life. I found this book pretty brilliant, and seriously, I totally don't understand what people mean saying that it's hard to get oneself immersed in his writing style. I loved every minute of it. Number 9 and number 8. Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead and Opowieści Bizarne by Olga Tokarczuk. 2 books, so let me explain. I have a difficult relationship with Olga Tokarczuk, Polish art most valuable export good nowadays. As much as I am happy that English-speaking world starts to discover Polish literature, I found the flights to be quite a bit overrated. That was a good book, don't get me wrong, but There are quite a few better books, not only generally in modern Polish literature, but also in her own portfolio. Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, released this year in English, is one of those. A great discussion on vegetarianism and animal rights disguised in the crime novel. With Tokarczuk's quite unusual ability to create her own, a bit spooky and oddly cozy atmosphere. The second mentioned book, this one, just released this year in Poland, Opowieści bizarne, that would translate as Bizarre Stories. This is a short story collection that is probably the best thing I've read from her yet. It's a collection of stunning, odd, weird, often chilling, yet quite relatable short stories that I would love to reread quite soon. Number 7, Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. I was hugely impressed earlier this year with this one. That impression quieted down a bit as the months passed. Nonetheless, this is a fascinating account of a love being on the border side of obsession, actually. The writing skills of Andre Aciman are stunning, and when it comes to describing the roller coaster of emotions of the first love, he does it like nobody else. I link my full-length review up and down in the box below. Number 6. The Only Story by Julian Barnes. Often called as a companion novel to The Sense of an Ending, The Only Story and the Booker Prize winning The Sense of an Ending are not related plot-wise, but address very similar, very Barnes-esque themes, memory, and how it's shaped by the flow of time. In The Only Story, Barnes, with seductively elegant prose, draws a portrait of a doomed relationship of a very young man and much older woman. This relationship develops farther than we would expect it to, considering the time and the place. That was quite unusual, and I loved that he went that way. It's a beautiful and a very sad story in which, from the different angle, Barnes asks about the importance of time. And full-length review will be linked, as always, somewhere here or down here. Yeah, that was a long day. Number 5, Whiteys by Harry Kunzru. And this was my biggest surprise this year. I was asking myself, being halfway through it, what the whole buzz is about. And then it hit me like nothing else this year. This is a great tale of a friendship and the love of music, but on the deeper level, this is a discussion about Afro-Americans and their culture and how those are still being exploited. Number 4, When I Hit You, or A Portrait of the Writer as a Young Wife by Meena Kandasamy. This is a beautiful, poetic, very personal and claustrophobic and brutal account of a woman in a violent relationship. Meena Kandasamy, Indian poet and a writer, based it on her short marriage, but it's a monument to all women struggling to get out of those type of relationships. It's fantastically written, moving and smart. I loved it. Go and Gone by Jenny Erpenbeck, number 3. Migration, one of the main topics of recent years, captured in the most effective way in the novel form yet. A story of German professor emeritus, initially quite unintentionally engaged in helping emigrants who set up a tent city in the center of Berlin. He grows more and more involved with them when he educates himself on the issue. He learns about political and social conditions of their places of origins and global politics surrounding the issue. I know it might sound quite heavy-handed, but it really is not. Of course, it is a political novel, but it is not demagogic. At least I haven't felt it this way. It's human, asking quite timeless questions on the boundaries of solidarity, placing the whole situation in a more in wider socio-political context. I really loved it. Number 2. The Overstory by Richard Powers. There were so many adjectives this book was described with. Most often used were eco-manifest, environmental novel, book about trees. And it is that, but it's so much more than just that. It's a gripping, fascinating story about brilliantly developed group of people fighting for what's important to them. It really reads as pleasantly as David Mitchell's full of characters novels, while it carries in addition to that a very important message. Yeah. You know, Richard Powers created something extraordinary here. I recorded a full-length review of this one, so if you want to find out a bit more, I link it up and down in the box below. The Overstory. Last year my first place was an exact place of a 2017 novel, The Horse Walks into a Bar by David Grossman, and the classic, Light in August by William Faulkner, that I've read for the first time last year. And to make this tradition lasting, this year the number 1 will also be shared and will be built exactly the same way. The excitement grows. The number 1 is Demons by Fyodor Dostoyevsky and Milkman by Anna Burns. This year for the first time I've read Demons by Dostoyevsky. Let me hold it up. Probably the most sarcastic, humorous, yet as always with him, a dark and very political novel. Inspired by the political unrest of 1860 in Russia, caused by students' conspiracies that were fueled by political ideas of Western Europe, especially the nihilism. The interesting thing is that Dostoyevsky, if we live in the same time, would be my political enemy, as his devotion to Eastern Orthodoxy, a light version of xenophobia, strong anti-Western attitudes are quite a summary of what I'm against. On the other hand, despite all of that, I cannot refuse his genius and his strong moral grounds. In addition to that, the way he structures his political points, his brilliant sense of humor and very good plotting. I know that some might say that he is a bit long-winded. He is not for me, although this is a bit of a chunker. But all of that are great material for a discussion, and because of that his novels are brilliant for me and for a lot of people actually. Milkman by Anna Burns. This is the only novel on the list, the only novel on the list, and I want to make it clear that I have listened to. I was blown away by it and I plan to make an effort to reread it in the first quarter of the next year. But what Anna Burns did here, she created a brilliant historical novel set in the Northern Ireland during the IRA unrest, narrated by a young woman, a girl really, who is trapped by a police state and a society watching her every move. It reads like a dystopian novel set in authoritarian society. And what helps is the fact that Northern Ireland nor any other names are mentioned. Those are only described by adjectives that are describing every place, every person. The language of the novel is, because of that, incredibly specific and quite inventive. I would really suggest, and I would not say it often, I would really say that this one is better to listen to. As I said already a few times, I believe. They almost look like descriptions that might be tiring when read for the first time, sound fantastic on audio. This is quite unusual in form, politically involved novel, addressing a freedom of individual, but most specifically a struggle of a woman to escape the norms that are imputed on her by the society. This is brilliant in every way, winner of the Man Booker Prize and well deservedly so. my favorite novel of the year. Let's look at it once again. Okay guys, tell me if you read any of those, tell me what you thought about them, and if there is any brilliant book that you absolutely loved, that you would like to talk with me about, there is a chance that I might have read it too. So let's talk about it in the comments below. Yeah, my voice is already telling me to stop talking. Okay guys, talk to you soon. Bye bye.